I used to be in a rock band like for 16 years, and I always hung my rosary on my microphone, so it's like old times. And I'm little, so I always have to do a lot of adjusting. How's that? Everybody can hear me now? Okay. Something that I had to wear jeans under my dress because it was cold. I should have known better. I've lived in Texas all my life. I was born in Corpus Christi, so I should know that the weather is bipolar, but I didn't think about it. I just thought, oh, this is a perfect dress. It's got roses on it. This is one of my favorite places in the whole world, and I'm just so happy and honored to be here and that Father Gregory trusts me not to do anything stupid while I'm here. So he trusts me to talk to his flock. I'm so touched. I met Father Gregory when he used to come to St. Mary's in College Station, which is kind of a little vocations factory, when he was vocations director for the Carmelites. So I met him when I was there. So what we're going to talk about is friendship with Mary. At the end of the Way of Perfection, St. Teresa of Avila is talking about, well, first she's complaining about her headache and all the noise in her head, which is so funny. I love her. But she says, I was going to write about how to say the Hail Mary perfectly, but maybe somebody else will do it. I'm tired, And she felt finished. What she had done is take the Our Father and make it about how to pray. And it's this beautiful reflection on the Our Father, but it's also very practical. It's my favorite book of hers. So when I read that, maybe I was going to write about the Hail Mary too, but, maybe somebody else will do it. And I thought, maybe I will. So I didn't really write about the Hail Mary, but I did write about Marian spirituality. And the basis of Carmelite Marian spirituality, especially for me, is that Mary is our sister and our friend as well as our mother and our queen. And this was so different to me. I converted to Catholicism from atheism, so it's quite a jump. I definitely needed some of Mary's help to do that. At a time of crisis in my family's life, we had to send my brother to drug rehab. And it was really scary. And when I was there, they had the 12 steps on the wall, and I was so mad at my parents. I was like, I thought you weren't going to send him to some kind of religious place, because I had agreed to not say anything to him and let them take him without his consent, And he trusted me. And I made the condition that no religious place, And so I was really mad when I saw the 12 steps. I was like, this is a bunch of brainwash, But what do you know? My brain needed washing. And they encouraged us that we all needed to work the 12 steps and go to Al-Anon and stuff if we wanted my brother to get well. And I was willing to do anything at all to save my brother. Anything. And so I even went to Al-Anon. And they said that I could believe, that I needed a higher power, that I needed to believe in something greater than myself. And that was really hard for me. I had believed in God as a child, which is weird because my parents were pretty agnostic. And we got a lot of hostility from religious people. Back then, College Station was a very small town. And my dad got hassled a lot for his long hair, and a lot of the kids weren't allowed to play with us because we weren't Christian, and, so I had a lot of resentment toward Christians. I just felt, Jesus totally freaked me out. But for some reason, when I was little, I was always drawn to Mary. She didn't scare me. But I forgot about that later in life when I was an angry, troubled teenager. And I was still like that when my brother went to rehab. So I was just kind of searching, because the steps say to find a God of your own understanding. Because you can't come to God in a way that you can't. You have to come the way you can, right? So I explored stuff, I read things, and then one day I walked into St. Mary's Catholic Church. Always been curious about those weird Catholics. And I was glad nobody was there. Nobody was going to bother me. In my experience, church people were always like, what's your number? You know, they want to call you and they want to say, why aren't you at church and stuff? And I'm like, oh, please, you know. So I was glad nobody was there. And I walked around in there and looked at things. And I went over to Mother Mary's statue. I was like, it's so weird. What's their deal with Mary, you know? And suddenly I felt just completely overwhelmed with Mary's love. And I knew that God was in that place. And later I would tell my mother, Mom, I could not have made up this kind of love. I could not. I wouldn't have even known this kind of love existed. There's no way that I made this up. So then, this Aggie guy that was in the Corps of Cadets, for goodness sake, asked me out on a date. I was working at a record shop. I didn't want to go out with him at all. But I thought, you know, it was really brave of him to ask me out. I should go. I'll hate him. He'll hate me for sure. And it'll be all done, you know, but I should at least go out with him, you know. So I tried to freak him out a little bit because he said, what do you want to do? You want to go to lunch? And I said, how about a picnic in the cemetery? Because I like to do that. I used to go on picnics in the cemetery all the time with my friends. And he said, yeah, do you have a really old, like, Catholic one here? And I was like, uh-oh. Yes, we did. Somehow I ended up learning the Hail Mary in that cemetery. He was annoyed with me because I wasn't getting it. You know, I'd never heard it before. I'd heard the first part maybe in movies, but I'd never really heard it before. And I was fascinated with it. I wanted to learn it. And I said, well, how fast did you learn it when you learned it? And he couldn't remember not knowing it. And I thought, wow, that is so cool. Like it's part of him, you know? Then he went home for the summer, and I found myself at Mass every single day. And I couldn't stay away from there. And I didn't know why I was there. I thought, I don't belong here. I don't understand what's going on. Sometimes I would leave in the middle and go cry in my car, being the dramatic girl I was. And, yeah, you can't imagine me being dramatic, can you? I'm being sarcastic. But at the end of Mass, they had this perpetual novena to Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal. I was like, wow, that sounds so bizarre. And the language was very archaic, you know. And the Hail Holy Queen was translated in a very strange way. It was talking about her eyes, like, turn your orbs of mercy toward us. And I was like, that just sounds like turn your eyeballs toward us. And I just thought, this is just so weird. I think I'm Catholiced out. I have to go. So that's how things started for me. She just tricked me, you know. She's so sneaky. And you hear stories like this from people all the time, that it was Mary who sometimes drags people kicking and screaming. And sometimes she just fools us. She tricks us. And it wasn't long before I had to realize that if Mary is real, and I do think I'm in contact with her, that means Jesus must be real. Oh, no. So I started trying to figure out how to relate to him, you know. And the thing that helped me the most was realizing that he was real, you know. And that's how my relationship with Mary is. Mary's a real person. She's in her garden working hard, and she's sweating, and she's dirty, and she's laughing, or she's crying, or, you know. And I start looking into the historical Mary, which helped me a lot to realize that she's a real person. She's completely human. As much as I love beautiful, sparkly pictures of Mary, all that gorgeous art and the beautiful songs, She's someone who knew gut-wrenching grief. She had to lose Joseph, her soulmate. I did too. My husband is buried in that same cemetery where he taught me the Hail Mary, and my second husband is buried next to him. So I felt like I understood Mary so much better when I was going through that. I'm sure that she had post-traumatic stress, I'm sure that she had nightmares and flashbacks of what happened to Jesus for the rest of her life. And it's not that she didn't have complete joy in his resurrection, but I think you would have still seen that trauma in her eyes, especially sometimes, So let's see what I was really supposed to say. I don't know. I got to look at my notes. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was kind of saying some of that. So one of the chapters in my book is called Mary is Our Homegirl, because she is totally and completely human. She is all one of us. I love all that beautiful stuff about Mary, as I was saying. I love the statues of her that are so beautiful, and but I need a hug. I need to sit down and have coffee with her. I want to read the scriptures with her. I want her to walk with me on my walk. I want her to chop vegetables with me, I have a little sign in my kitchen that says, "Today, the vegetables would like to be chopped by someone who is singing God's name." And that's a poem from a medieval poet and mystic. He wasn't any particular religion. He was in the Middle East, though, and his name was Hafiz. But I just love that, And I have my statue of Mary. It's our family statue of her, of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and I have her on the windowsill there, so I can always look at her when I'm doing dishes or whatever, because I feel like, she's always there. Yeah, I started out kind of funny, but now I'm tangled in her hair, and she drags me all over the place. St. Teresa of Avila taught us about the way to Jesus is through his sacred humanity. Now, there was a movement at that time called Quietism, where it was a heresy, really, where they thought that the only way to reach the deepest levels of prayer was to purposely discard the humanity of Jesus, to just have nothing, to have pure imageless prayer. Which sometimes happens in the deeper levels of prayer. Not that you do that, but you just lose everything, like God just turns the lights out for a minute. That's okay. But we should never, never disregard the humanity, the sacred humanity of Jesus. That's why he came, to be us, So in Carmel, we have a saying, as with Jesus, so with Mary. And so we want to look at, you wouldn't say Mary's sacred humanity, because she's not divine, but you could say her. I asked Father Gregory when I was writing the book, I can't say that, right? Mary's sacred humanity, I can't say that. He said, no, I think that term only belongs to our Lord. So I came up with her perfect, pure humanity. I think to some people that is off-putting, How do you relate to somebody who's immaculately conceived? How can you come before someone like that? How is she going to see us, Because we're so far from that. I mean, in our baptism, we're immaculately conceived for a minute until we go outside and mess up. But some people, I think, I've heard this from a lot, is that we tend to put her up so high. And she is, she's all that. She has a crown of stars. And when we see Mary in our soul, we just want to fall down on our face and kiss the hem of her dress. But she doesn't always want that, Sometimes she wants us to get up and help her with the baking, or just to sit with her and be with her and talk to her. She loves us, and she wants She wants to be with us in a very real way. And, okay, where was I? I can't believe they let me go around and talk to people. Yeah. So I think it's really important to remember that Mary is real, and this is where our imagination can really help. I like to think of how her hands feel. They were probably calloused, It looks like the historical Mary. It looks like she would have worked for a woman in her state of general poverty, like most people at that time. She would have done about 10 hours of hard labor a day. She would have also been cooking at home, making the bread, sewing the clothes, watching the baby or the little boy or whatever. And they would have lived in a family compound that had a courtyard in the middle. Their houses would have all been open to this courtyard. And that's where women would come out and work and do things. And they would have had some fields that the family grew food in. She would have worked in those fields. So thinking about her doing hard work means a lot to me. I'm a caregiver. That's what I do during the day. I used to work in the press room at the newspaper that I now am a columnist for, and it's hard work. And you come home covered with ink, and you work very hard, and you sweat, but we laughed all day, and we were like a family. So I like to think of her as working, and the people, the kids would have been all in and out of each other's houses all day. The street that I raised my children on, we were like that. We all watched each other's kids. The kids ran up and down the street. It was a fairly quiet street. And, they all liked to hang out at my house for some reason, probably because I let people roller skate in the living room and stuff. My house was kind of like a cross between a convent and Pippi Longstocking's house, I think. And they always, if you're here when we're going to pray, you have to pray too. So get over here. But the rest of the time, it was kind of crazy with my chickens and dogs and just everything. And now it's pretty much like that again. So, but she would have had, all the cousins and uncles and aunts and elderly of the family. She would have helped at births of the other women. She would have gone and visited the sick or helped somebody take care of their elderly grandma. So she was very involved. She was a sister. She was a cousin. She was a mother. She was a friend. She had relationships and people that she loved. She had people that loved her. She was part of a community. And that's really important to remember because we're all those things, right? And that's a very important part of our Christian lives, is the love and the relationships that we have. Jesus really emphasized those things. And the church teaches us that as lay people, our job is to bring the light of Christ into those places, into work, into our relationships in the family. As long as we're always putting God first and we don't have any idols before Him. And if you think about a sister, or I didn't really have a sister growing up. I have a half-sister now, but I was already 20 when she was 24 when she was born. And my stepmom and I were pregnant together for a little while. That's kind of weird. I'm more like her aunt. I grew up with a brother, but we were very, very close. And when my brother would come over, if I was doing something, he just started doing it too. And I have friends that I'm very, very close to that we've all been friends for 30 years and more, So when I go over to their houses too, I'll just wash dishes or let the dog out or whatever, don't you? You just go in and you start taking part in their lives. And that's what Mary's house is like, right? You can pick her roses if you want to. She doesn't mind. Sometimes, you're there and she doesn't want to talk. She's like, get to work. With a sister or a brother, you have a shared intimacy. You have a shared story. A brother or a sister is a unique witness to your life. So Mary is more of a friend than a distant ruler, She's part of everything, and she wants to be. Mothers can be like that too, but it's slightly different. Something that St. Teresa said that I really like, she says a lot of great things, but she said, sometimes pray to Jesus as a brother, sometimes see him as a spouse, sometimes as a father, and sometimes we see Jesus as a little baby and we hold him in our arms at Christmas, There are so many ways to be with Mary. Sometimes I'm calling her mother. Other times I think of her more as my friend who's always with me. After all, how can we have a relationship with someone who isn't real? She needs to be real to us. And I think it's okay to imagine Mary in a way that makes sense to you. She doesn't mind. Look at Our Lady of Guadalupe. She came and looked like the people that she was with. She wanted them to know, I'm with you. As she was on the side, they were so poor and they had so much trouble, and the history, the Spanish and the Indians didn't get along at all for obvious reasons. But she came and she let them know, I'm with you. I am you. And I don't think she minds if we need to imagine her in jeans and a t-shirt or something, If she was here in our time, that's what she would be. She'd be some young mother in flip-flops and jeans and a t-shirt, she's getting through the day. She has a lot to do. So we start with what we have, and we make ourselves receptive to her. If we're receptive to Mary, and we learn to open our hearts to her and be confident when we talk to her, and we let her be herself, she'll start communicating to us, and we'll get to know her for real. I want to talk about Mary's Immaculate Conception and that off-putting thing about her being so pure that maybe she's, judging us or something. Because I've heard that some, and I would like to talk about that. I think I talked about it quite a bit in the book, where something John Paul II, and by the way, that statue back there is so realistic looking, it really startled me. But he said this great thing in his Theology of the Body, where he said that in the beginning, before the fall, Adam and Eve, when they looked at each other, instead of only seeing each other's physical bodies, they could actually see the inner truth of the other person with their eyes. I don't know what that would look like. But think of that. When Mary looks at us, she's the new Eve. And just like Eve was immaculately conceived for a little while before her big mistake, she would have looked at Adam and seen who he really was in God. She would have seen him the way God saw him, with his inner truth so clear to her. And if you think about it, the way that we're supposed to love our neighbor and love others is we're trying to see that too, but we're having to go on faith and love of God. We're trying to see each other's inner truth and know that, when we try to understand somebody, when they've been really ugly to us and we start thinking they probably had a bad childhood or whatever, but that's because we're really trying, although that may sound a little arrogant, like we're, but at first we try to understand what may be inside that person, because only God knoweth the heart. So what we're doing is we're going on trust that inside that person is God's child. And this is a child of God. And one way that I talk about pro-life stuff is that when you talk to somebody pro-choice that's Christian, I always ask them, do you think that the unborn child is a child of God? Yes or no? I mean, is that a child of God? They have to think about it. It at least makes people think, So, sorry I'm saying you know so much. I don't usually do that. That's new. So I want you, when you go to Mary, I want you to remember that what she sees, she knows of all of our faults. But when she looks at us, she just loves us. And she sees our inner truth. She sees who we are in God. And we're beautiful to her. You know how you look at, those of you that are parents, you know how you look at your newborn baby and you just can't stop staring at them? And you and the baby just stare at each other? And Mary feels that way and more about us. Can you imagine? I can't, but we have to trust that. We have to go on faith that she does, that she loves us like that. I can't figure out why she loves me so much and why she's always so excited to see me. I feel like her face, she just blooms like a rose anytime I come to her house. And I think, that's so funny. I don't know why she likes me so much, but she does, and she loves you like that too. She wants you. Do you remember going to your granny's house or to your grandma's house, whatever you called her? In Texas, we have so many names for our grandparents. My first husband was from Milwaukee, and he's like, why do y'all do that? Isn't grandpa and grandma good enough for y'all? No. We have all these names. Mama and Papa and whatever. So if you went to your grandmother's house, you'll understand what I'm saying, is that I remember my granny and all my cousins and everybody, both sets of grandparents, everybody lived in Corpus Christi. Because my parents came, they were very young parents. They got pregnant with me in high school. So they were moving to College Station to go to A&M, and we just kind of stayed. So when we would go home to Corpus Christi, we would just be freaking out. When we got to the Harbor Bridge, I would be waking up my brother like, wake up, we're almost there. We're almost at Granny's house. And we could just barely contain ourselves. We would get to the part of town that's called Flower Bluff. We would get out there and, oh my goodness, this is Talmadge Street. We're almost there. And then there's DeWitt Street. Oh, we'd be like hitting the ceiling of the car, so excited. But she was no less excited than we were. And when she saw our car pull into the driveway, the screen door would bang open and hit the side of the house, and she'd be yelling, my babies! And we would run in there, the dogs barking and everything, and jump into her arms, and it'd just be utter chaos for a while. So I hope that you can imagine that coming to Mary's house is like that. She's there, and she's so excited. She's waiting for you. She loves you. It's been too long. She wants you in her arms. She's already put the coffee on, or the tea, whatever it is you like. And she's all ready for the best conversation. She wants to sit you down at the table. She wants to hold your hands and look at you. And she's going to catch you up on all the whatever Jesus has been doing lately. And you can say, you're kidding, really? Now what's he up to? Yeah, St. Teresa talked about Jesus as the friend who we know loves us. And she spoke of prayer as being nothing more than making time to be alone with the one who we know loves us. So we need to trust that Mary loves us. I know that sounds like, oh yeah, Jesus loves me, this I know. We've heard that all our lives, but how much do we really believe that? It's so hard to believe, It's hard. See, there I go, again. This is something that my agnostic brother asked me, like, how do you know God isn't just your imaginary friend? Let's talk about this with Mary. How do we know that Mary's not just our imaginary friend? You know how kids have imaginary friends? And you might ask your kid, like, well, what does this person look like? And they'll be like, oh, she has purple hair and orange eyes. And you're like, ooh. But how do we know that? How would we answer that question? Well, think about what Jesus said. We'll know by the fruits of our relationship with Mary. What would those be? Well, I would say growth in virtue and authenticity, of getting closer to being the person who you really are, in God. A deepening prayer life. I always feel sorry for people who are like, what's y'all's deal with Mary? You're missing out so much. A growth in love of God and purity of heart. I think those are probably Mary's principal virtues, as well as trust in God. You'll start caring about the things Mary cares about. You'll start seeing people through her eyes. You'll grow in the desire to love and to serve. You'll start to see Mary acting in your life. I'm sure you all have a story of something that Mary did for you, that you know it was her, and it couldn't have been anybody else. You'll start noticing her companionship and its effects on your life. Jesus becomes more real to you. She's the one that Jesus became human through. No one knows about his sacred humanity more than she does. And so his incarnation continues to happen through Mary. That's how I think. One of the things that I learned from Al-Anon and AA was that there's this great quote from the Big Book that says, God does not make too hard terms with those who approach him in whatever way they are able. Mary's the same way, so don't be worried if, you think you're not doing it right or something. She'll meet you where you are, in my experience, because I was a mess when I met her. Let's see how much time we have left, because there's something I want you to do. Oh, okay. You can probably do this at adoration, but here's what I want you to do. I hope you brought something to write with. If you didn't, I brought some little composition books, and they're in the sacristy. You'll just have to ask around for a pen, because I forgot the whole package of pens. So, if you can write this down, does everybody have something to write with? If you don't, I'll try to help you. We're about to have exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, right? And so if you don't finish in the 7 minutes we have left, then you can do this during adoration. Jesus won't mind. He never goes anywhere without her. Okay. What I would like you to do to help Mary be more real to you is, it's called making a sensory portrait. I actually learned this in creative writing class in high school, but I'm applying it to Mary. Okay, so I want you to write down Mary looks like, and go through your 5 senses. Mary sounds like, Mary feels like, and when we get to our sense of taste, that might be a little weird. But I'm telling you, she makes the best soup. She does. So think about what it would taste like if she made you your favorite dish or something to eat that was from her hands. How would it taste? When I think about that Mary smell, like when I think about hugging her, for some reason to me, she always smells like cinnamon, which she wouldn't have. There's no way. But to me, there's this kind of cinnamony smell around her. So usually what I would say right for this break we're going to have now is that find a quiet place, quiet your heart, and write down a sensory portrait of Mary that makes sense to you. If an image of Mary doesn't make sense to you, it could seriously hamper your ability to relate to her, right? So you want to So I'm going to read you something. Let's see, chapter 2 of my book. I've got it on my Kindle. Let's see here. No. Aren't these phones great? You can have everything on them. Okay. Let's go to chapter 2. The art in this book is done by my sister-in-law. Okay, so here's a little reading. And don't worry, it's very short. Look at Mary. I'm starting with a quote from Julian of Norwich. Do you want to see her? I answered, yes, good Lord. Thank you very much. Yes, good Lord, if it is your will. We can't see Mary physically. However, we can take St. Teresa of Avila's advice about friendship with Jesus and apply it also to Our Lady. We already said all this, so let me move on here. With a good imagination, you can form a relatable image of Mary in your mind, carrying it with you always, returning to it throughout the day. One of the ways I approach Mary in friendship is to come to her with a smile. I almost can't think of her without smiling. Can you? When you see your dearest friend, you smile from the heart. If you don't already smile at Mary, doing so can change slightly the level of intimacy you feel in her company, which will open your heart a little more to her. She is surely smiling back at you. If your feelings permit, why not smile if you can? One of the things that is important to remember is that imagination it facilitates an encounter that is real. So just like the words of a prayer that you say, or religious art that you're meditating on or looking at, how some people really get a lot out of praying with icons. And there's been times where I have too. Imagination is an act of the mind that facilitates encounter. Just like the words of the Hail Mary, if you're concentrating on them and you know who you're talking to and what you're saying to her. But you can trust that you really are talking to Mary and that she is real and she is there and she will respond to you. So the imagination can focus your attention and helps you be able to make that contact. The contact is real, but we know that our imagination is something that we're doing, right? St. Teresa of Avila suggests finding, if you're beginning in contemplative prayer, to find an image of the Lord that you like and that you feel easy with, and to talk to it sometimes and just look at it a lot, talk to it, and eventually you form, that image kind of migrates into your heart and becomes a part of you, and then it helps you with prayer. And you can take that image everywhere you go. It's kind of an anchor for you. So I thought when I was writing the book that what we can do is form an image of Mary in our minds that we like, that we can relate to, and she really doesn't mind. And pray with that image in the same way that St. Teresa talked about. And I'm sure we all have an image of Mary in our home. As I mentioned, I have that Our Lady of Mount Carmel on the windowsill in my kitchen, and I have paintings that my friends have made, and I have other pictures of her. And I do talk to them sometimes. But this is one way to make Jesus and Mary relatable and real to you. And it trains the mind in attentiveness to God. At first, using imagination in prayer, it is an act of the mind. But as you grow in it, it becomes looking at Mary with the heart. And later it becomes a simple encounter without your mind having to do anything. St. Teresa talked about the 4 waters of prayer. At first, you have to work really hard. You have to carry water from the well and drag those buckets back and forth to your garden. Well, at least you did in her time, right? Next, you might have a way of irrigation where the water maybe you've dug something and you pour water in and it runs down to your garden, right? And another one that she thought of was the water wheel. Eventually, it's the water wheel, and with greater ease, it carries the buckets of water. You don't have to draw water from the well with such hard work anymore. And last of all, it just rains. And you don't have to do anything. Prayer isn't always like that, but eventually when you have been praying and you've been faithful to it a long time, God may give you that gift. And you won't need to make yourself imagine anything, because that's your mind, and your intellect can only take you so far. The only thing that really reaches God is love. You have sometimes all that goes away, and you're just with God. And that's true of Mary too. Sometimes there's all we need is just that simple regard for her. But in my journey, imaginative prayer has been extremely helpful, and it really helped me in my conversion. So what I did, since, as I said earlier, Jesus freaked me out, I just could not relate to Jesus as I saw him with other people. The way the pictures of him or the whatever, I just had such bad associations with all that. So what I did was I imagined Jesus as one of the hippie guys that I grew up around. My father had long, beautiful, black hair that I wish I would have inherited with ringlets, and it came all the way down to here. His friends all had hair down to here. My parents were hippies, and so what comforted me was to think of Jesus in just blue jeans and maybe bare feet or sandals or whatever, and a blue button-up shirt that was kind of faded, and he could come up to me and say, "Hey, want a sandwich, want to walk with me on the beach or come hang out?" And so that helped me a whole lot. And then I found a book by a priest. He's an Episcopalian priest, and his name was Martin T. Kelsey. And he wrote a book called Christian Meditation. And when I saw it, I thought, Christians meditate? You never know. And so I was interested, so I bought it. And it talks a lot about the use of imaginative prayer and the use of imaginative prayer in Christian, prayer journaling and stuff. And so that was kind of my little way in. That helped me a great deal. And it helped me in writing the book, because it kind of goes the opposite for me now. I don't really, one day, just imaginative prayer nothing happened anymore. It's almost like my pen just fell out of my hand and I couldn't do it anymore. When that kind of thing happens, a lot of times God is just leading you in a new way of prayer. But now it's kind of the opposite. I use my very vivid imagination to describe my life with Mary. And that's a lot of what I did in the book. I try to help you step into life with Mary and to have a relationship with her that you enjoy even more than you enjoy Mary now. It really opens you to imagine an encounter with Mary, because that way slowly you become more receptive over time to spiritual reality. And the Holy Spirit starts to work. And it's really kind of amazing. You always know that whatever you've imagined, that it's part you, but you start to see the Holy Spirit in it sometimes too. Like, wow, that was amazing. I felt so close to her. So eventually, though, you don't need imagination. It'll just be this heart-to-heart experience with her. And we don't want it just to be about imagination, right? We want it to be present to Mary. So one of the things that St. John of the Cross said about the use of imagination in prayer is to just imagine lightly, just very lightly. Don't try to put too many details in it, because then your mind wants to get all involved in this. Your brain wants to go, okay, and then, there's this many steps to her house, and at least mine kind of works like that. And you want to imagine the whole, everything about it, and you start being real controlling, and you want to make the story go this way or whatever. Instead of that, just kind of be open-ended about it. Just imagine a couple of things, like what spices may be in her kitchen. Feel the floor under your feet. If she gives you her hands, what do they feel like? Are they rough? Are they soft? Are they warm? Are they cold? The way that I usually get started, and you might want to write this down so that you can do, we probably won't have time for me to send you off on a writing assignment and bring you back. So the first thing I do, or that I learned from Morton T. Kelsey, was, and I think actually St. Ignatius talks about this as well, is I imagine a place, and Mary's house can be any kind of house you want. Sometimes I imagine Mary's historical house, like what it would have been, a house of stone, with a thatched roof, probably. Or maybe you want to imagine your own mother's house, or your grandmother's house, or the house you grew up in, whatever. It can be any time. I mean, this is one of the great things about imagination. It can be any time or whatever that you want. Or a landscape. You can imagine a landscape. Like one of the first things I did is get Jesus to walk along the beach with me at Padre Island. You may want to make the place that you imagine reflect your mood. Like if you're having a really hard time. I've met Jesus in a dark cave before, because that's how he felt, when you're feeling really bad. Or the ocean, it's gray, the sky is gray, you're in a boat, he's asleep, like in the scriptures. Maybe you want to wake him up. Maybe you just want to look at him. He's so beautiful. So what I usually, when I started out, I like to write about it. Not everybody likes to write, but writing about it helped me stay focused, and things sort of flowed for me better. So I would just start writing about this place. And just a few details. Don't make it too detailed. Just general idea of where you are. And place yourself there. And then find Mary. What is she doing? How does she greet you? Does she say anything? How does she seem? Is there anything you want to ask Mary or say to her? Maybe you could ask her for her friendship and offer her yours. Maybe you have something going on in your life that you want to talk to her about. Maybe you want to pray with her or have her pray over you. That can be a really powerful experience. Because you may be imagining it, but she really is praying over you. I mean, for real, she is. Because you ask her to, and she'll always grant that request. Or maybe you want to help Mary with something. And then in a relaxed way, you just kind of go with it. You write down. And sometimes you may be having a bad time. You can look back at what you wrote and remember how much she's with you. Okay. All right, let's try this. You want to try it a little bit with me? Here's one of the little sections in the book. An imaginative sequence is what I call them. So just kind of listen, and if you want to write anything down, go ahead. If you don't, just listen. Let's take a deep breath. Hold it for a second, and because you kind of want to calm down to do this. Okay. Come to Mary's house. You're relieved to be here after a long day at work. The house smells of baking bread. That wonderful aroma nourishes your heart. She is just coming in from the garden with a basket. She greets you as she lays it on the counter. She sees how tired you are. She offers you a chair, makes you a cup of soothing tea. Then she comes to sit with you. Tenderly, she offers you her hands. You take them into your own. She looks at you, perhaps with expectation, maybe with a smile, certainly with love. Holding her hands, keeping your inner gaze on Mary, feeling her warm fingers in yours, say to her a slow, thoughtful Hail Mary. Strive to remain attentive to what you are saying and to whom you are speaking. Is there anything else you would like to say to Mary? Does she say anything to you? Rest a moment now in her very present love. So how did that go? Did you like that? I know that when I first tried this, I just felt like I could just drink Mary's love. I needed it so much. So you might try that again sometime and sort of write it down, And as I keep saying to you, it's probably boring, but you imagined something, but the encounter you had, the contact with Mary, was totally real. There's no way that she did not touch your soul. There's this great quote. Let me see if I had it in the beginning of this chapter. I think I did. All the chapters are just a couple pages. I think I tried to make them like 500, 600 words. Yeah, here it is. The glorious Virgin Mary is a most courteous queen, nor, wondrous to say, is it possible to greet her and not be greeted in return. If you say with devotion 1,000 Ave Marias in a day, 1,000 times will you be greeted by the Virgin. That's St. Bernardino. Isn't that great? It's noisy around here, huh? So, it's time for a Mother Mary joke. God bless whatever that's about. So, what kind of car does Mother Mary drive? Think, think, think. A Fiat. Yeah, I guess she could. Yeah, Father Dean Wilhelm told me that joke, and I thought it was so great. Only a Catholic would get that, because we know that in Latin, her "Let it be done unto me" starts with "fiat mihi," right? I love that. That's funny. Okay, let me get back to my supposed notes here. Okay. Boy, I wrote us a lot of stuff here. Oh, okay. All right. This is good. All right. I got what we're going to do. Speaking of being Catholic, I have a really good friend. I almost married him, but then we thought better of it. Thank goodness. That would have been a disaster. But we're good friends. In fact, I'm staying at his sister's house while I'm in San Antonio. He pointed out, he used to be a Methodist pastor, and as he was learning about Catholicism while we were dating for a while, he made the observation that, like especially around communion, is that he thought that as Protestants, they're witnesses to say the Last Supper, a witness. And he noticed that our whole thing is, it's almost like we believe we're participating in it. Like we're not witnesses, we are part of it. Like the Mass is eternal. It's not something we're just reenacting. We're not seeing it from the outside. It's something that's eternal that we step into. We are there. And in a lot of ways, that applies to what I'm trying to say about Mary, because in Carmelite spirituality, Mary is not really a model so much as we assimilate her, We assimilate her. And there's something that K.R. Lubick said. She's the founder of the Focolare movement in the church. They're all about unity, and they call it the work of Mary, which, of course, she wants to see all her children gather around the table and everybody getting along. So she said that she felt like every moment I live her, I relive her. And I think a Carmelite could relate to that. And one of the things I said in the book is that we Carmelites say we resemble her. We come to resemble her because we're all in the same family, especially around our eyes. And what I meant by that is that we begin to see as she sees. And I mentioned earlier that we'll start to feel upset about the things that break her heart. And we'll want to listen to her and console her. And we'll want to do things to help out. If she's worried about something, she worries so much about her children. Not worrying as a don't worry about this and that. Have faith. Not like that, but she has deep concern. Wherever there is suffering, she's there. And that's one of the ways that we can go all over the world. We can go with Mary and she'll take us. And we can touch the faces of people who suffer, who weep. And with her we can whisper, Jesus is love. Jesus is life. Jesus is here. Your Mother Mary is here with you. So we're very present with Mary, and she's very present with us. We're not just seeing Mary from the outside, we're taking part in her life. And I always thought it was so interesting that the original name of the Carmelites on Mount Carmel was the Brothers of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. They saw themselves as her brothers. They were living there with her, and they saw themselves as living Mary's spirituality. Although Mary was immersed in family life, we think of, the friars thought of themselves as living her way of prayer. Mary reflected on everything in her heart. She pondered the words of Jesus and the events of his life in her heart. When he went out into the desert to fast and pray, as we're thinking about a lot right now in Lent, she was united in heart with him. She went on with her work around the house, but her heart was always united with his. There's a line from a Carmelite saint named Saint Mariam of Jesus Crucified. And she said, "I live in the heart of my mother, and there I find my beloved." And there's so many ways to see that. But one of the things I thought about when I was trying to put the book together was that, to me, that describes kind of a Marian mindfulness. In the same way that she was always mindful of Jesus, always. Her mind was always on him. Her heart was always united with his. In the same way, she teaches us to be that way. We are enveloped in Mary's heart, and her heart is always pondering her son. The way that Carmelites pray is the knowledge that Jesus is within us. That's a very Teresian idea. She always said, Jesus, the Lord is within us, and we shouldn't leave him there alone, like a bad host, right? If he came to your house, you're not going to go in the kitchen and cook and forget about him and leave him in there by himself. No, we keep the Lord company. And we want our hearts to be a little Bethany where he can come and rest. In fact, this is how we will rise from death, according to the scriptures. By his Spirit living within us, that is exactly how our bodies will be raised from the dead. That's how solid that reality is. And Mary knew this profoundly. She actually had Jesus' physical body living within her. It's true for us too, and that becomes the basis of our prayer with her. And that's a good segue into how do we touch base with Mary throughout the day? How do we begin to live like that, like as she did? There's some really simple things that I do that maybe are good. First of all, our lives are crazy. Our lives are crazy. Everybody's so busy. But that's okay. Mary was busy too. She was very busy. She was doing things all day. We can pray as we go about our day, but also we have to make time to be alone with the one who we know loves us, right? For me, my life is a lot more like a cadenza and less like a string quartet. In other words, I have an ADD life. Time is fluid for me. I'm, all over. But some people need a lot more structure. And if you're somebody that needs a lot more structure, make an appointment to sit quietly, 5 minutes even, just to sit quietly with God. I bet a lot of you already do this. And spend some time with God and Our Lady. And for me, with my ADHD mind, the best thing for me, if you're anything like me, what you want to do is just make some little spots throughout the day. More of a loose, open-ended sort of thing, and just touch base. Grab those times. And especially since I was a single mom for 12 years with 2 kids that had Tourette syndrome and all the emotional intensity that comes with it, I just had to steal time, I got up early and I stayed up late so that I had time to write in my journal. I had time to pray. And I had times where I hid in the bathroom for a little while. One time I hid in the treehouse for a while. The kids are walking around the yard going, "Mom?" I mean, they were old enough to be, like that. But, sometimes I just don't want to hear the word mom for 5 minutes. But I hid in the treehouse and I was laying flat and I was kind of laughing because they were like, "Mom, where's this?" or whatever. And I stayed up there and prayed for a while. Mother Teresa said, if I did not pray, I could not work. And as a single mom, I totally believe that. Now that I watch my grandchildren all the time, I remember my mom saying, "Now I know why God gave us menopause." I'd come to pick my kids up and she'd come to the door, her hair's all messy, everything's crazy in there. So we all feel like that. And we live in a very rushed world in the times that we live in. Another thing I had to do was just start dropping things, start saying no more, Sometimes we get so busy. I remember my husband saying, I think our car could drive itself to church because we were just in everything, I had to drop some of that stuff, so Teresa of Avila said, let nothing steal your treasure. And if you find that your life is just so cluttered, cut some things out of it, cut some things out and make some time to be quiet. Even if you don't pray, particularly during that time, just so you have time to just be quiet and think. Even that. Another thing I do to keep touch with Mary is, and this is not a particularly Carmelite idea, but it's not opposed, is that I say her name a lot throughout my day. How much time we spend filling the car up with gas, standing in the line at the grocery store, being bored, looking at magazine covers that are probably best left to themselves. I spend that time a lot of the times by just saying, Jesus Maria, Jesus Maria. That's what was on St. Joan of Arc's banner, so I like that a lot, and I say that. I love St. Joan of Arc. And so I just say Jesus Maria when I'm walking around and going through my day. And strangely enough, it helps me a lot. I can focus on my task better that way. And also it just keeps me practicing the presence of God. And also I start to notice when, say I'm in the grocery line, it's busy and crazy in there, and I'm overstimulated and I need to go home and hide under my bed. But when I start saying it mentally, Jesus Maria, Jesus Maria, Jesus Maria, maybe I'll notice something around me that I would have just not noticed because I was too busy freaking out inside. Like the cashier is really tired. The old man behind me is confused by the system of, how this is going to go. Or the little kid in front of me is being really good, but very miserable. So maybe I should say hi and tell the little kid, "You're doing so good. My kids are grown up and they're not as good as you." But for some reason it helps me to notice everything around me. So anytime I have, and anytime I remember, I'll say Jesus Maria. And if I'm feeling dry in prayer, just a few repetitions of, I call it deep repetition, because it's not vain repetition, it's deep repetition. I know who I'm talking to. I saw a funny meme one time. It's called The First Rosary, and it has Mother Mary walking along, and little Jesus is next to her going, "Mom, Mom, 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 Mom," and her eyes are all big, like, I think, yeah, maybe that is the first rosary, except she never gets tired of us somehow. So when I first wake up, the first thing I do is I say, Jesus Maria, Jesus Maria, Jesus Maria. And then I tell God how comfortable I am and how much I love sleeping and how much I love my room. And I think about what I'm going to do that day and I tell him about it. But that's one way to start your day. You know, and we, as Catholics, we have that morning offering that a lot of people pray. I really like that. When I remember, I do that. And then the church gives us a great way to get recentered and bring Mary back into your day. Am I running out of time already? Okay, I don't think so. And that is the Angelus at noon. And my church rings the Angelus bells at noon. And everybody that's at the church will pray the Angelus. But the Angelus prayer is just a great way to, if I'm at work and I can't pray it, what I do is I just kind of, I just embrace Mary in my mind, or I touch foreheads with her for a second. But my Focolare friends say that what they do is they have, at noon, they always pray for peace. And we could use that in our world today. And so what I do now is I say the Angelus prayer, if I can, and then I ask her to pray for peace with me. Because I thought that was a pretty cool idea the Focolare had. Also, in the evening, a good way to touch base with Mary is praying the Magnificat. That's her song in the Gospel of Luke. It's in chapter 1, near the end of chapter 1. And if you pray the Liturgy of the Hours, you probably have it memorized, because we pray the Magnificat every night. And I like to get a cup of herbal tea and stand at the window, and me and Mary bless the world with the Magnificat. My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. And then we talk about all the things that I'm sure she prayed for all her life, that God will lift up the lowly and bring down the mighty, feed the hungry and send the rich away empty. I have a funny story about that, actually, a way that she intervened in life. Like, I asked her one time, that line in the Magnificat's kind of mean, the one about feeding the hungry and sending the rich away empty. I don't want to send anybody away empty. That's mean. So I asked her to show me what she meant by that. Because she's never mean, so there has to be an explanation, right? And I used to have this homeless friend named George that he would call me sometimes when he needed help, and we'd go pick him up or whatever. And he called me and I said, what are you doing? It was very, very hot that day. And he said, I'm hot. I need something to eat or drink. And so I went over there and I thought, oh my gosh, I only have $20 left for the whole week. So if I run out of milk or whatever, no dice. But George needs it more, right? So we went over there and he asked my kids, are you being good? And it's a good thing they didn't answer, because they were being horrible in the back seat. They were like, what are we going to do? And I said, we're going to see George. And my 4-year-old said, he smells. And my other kids said, offered up doorknob. So I gave George my last 20 for the whole week, and he did a dance. He was dressed as a bullfighter that day. He was very flamboyant. He still is. And when I left, I realized that I had given George all my money, and I was sent away empty, but I was happy. So if you ask Mary a question, she'll answer you. Just start paying attention in your life. So now whenever I pray that line about the rich sent away empty and the poor filled, that's what I think about. And we'll all be happy when that happens. We'll all know that was a beautiful thing. Isn't that great? So, let me see. My husband was atheist when I first married him, my second husband. I've been widowed twice. I've been like, dude, I've been through it. But anyway, he used to say, why are you doing church stuff in the house? And I didn't know what I was doing. I apparently was genuflecting and stuff in the kitchen sometimes. And I was praying to myself, praying quietly. But I told him, you should be able to relate to that, because he thought of everything he did as love. By the way, he converted to Catholicism by the end of his life, so he did. And he was beautiful. But he called it his skin religion. He just he did things for people all the time. His love language was acts of service, and he was constantly, he would never let some old lady mow her own lawn. He would go over and do it. And every time he mowed our lawn, he would think about my daughter's feet on the grass and being nice soft grass for them. And he called it his skin religion, which is cool. So I told him, it's just me doing my skin religion. That's all. So make Mary a part of your day, whatever you're doing when you think of her. Even if you just think of her and smile, she loves that. She loves for us to do that. Let me see how much time I have left, because I could talk all day. I have 5 seconds. Okay. So, how at the end of Mass we say, go in love and peace and love and serve the Lord. Maybe we can say, go in peace and love and serve Our Lady. And take her into your day and love her. And you better watch out, because once you start coming to Mary's house, she starts coming to yours. And you may come home one day and find everything rearranged and all your papers blowing around, because Jesus likes the windows open and the Holy Spirit will be blowing through you. She's the spouse of the Holy Spirit, right? So she'll start coming to your house and everything starts changing. She's a good Jewish mother. She'll move in, and she puts everything together, and she'll change your life. So with much love, have a good day. It's Saturday. It's our Ladies' Day, and you did something special for her today. So yay. Okay, bye.